did not rain that night, it poured. The rain came down hard and it was falling at an angle. This made the streetlights look all fuzzy and the windows sounded like someone was banging on drums. Paul Everett had just washed a bowl from the dinner he had. Canned soup and crackers. He usually ate alone. It was quiet. His phone started buzzing on the counter. He thought about not answering it. Nobody ever called him late. Actually, nobody really called him all. The man was about to grab something. Then he saw the name and his hand just stopped. It was like his hand was stuck in the air. Water was dripping from his fingers down onto the tile floor. The name really caught his attention. He just froze. The water kept dripping from his fingers. Pamela Foster. The air felt really thin for a moment. Pamela was the girl who walked home with him sharing one umbrella. They would laugh together at jokes. She always said that he was smarter than he thought he was. Pamela was the girl who wanted to leave their town in Nebraska and never come back. She really wanted to get out of that place. Pamela was the girl who had plans to leave Nebraska behind. The people in question had not talked to each other for a long time. They had not had a conversation in years. The years had gone by. They had not spoken. Paul looked at the screen. His heart was beating really fast. The phone buzzed again. It was like the phone was saying, "Hey, answer me." The phone was being very urgent. Paul's phone was buzzing a lot. The man gave a response. "Pam?" He said this in a voice, but he could feel his chest getting all tight. "Is everything okay with you?" It was quiet for a moment. All you could hear was the rain coming down. Something else too. There was this breathing sound. It sounded like the person who was breathing had been really scared for a long time. The sound of the rain was loud. You could still hear the breathing. It was the breathing of someone who had been carrying fear around with them for a time, the fear of the rain and the fear of something else. Then her voice came through. It was all shaking. "Paul, can you get me?" He jumped up quickly and his chair made a loud scraping noise on the floor. "Where are you?" The man locked the door. She swallowed hard. It was like the words were very painful for her to say. The man said that she did not deserve to come inside the house. Paul's stomach dropped. He did not ask who it was. He did not need to ask. The reason is that there was one man in Pamela's adult life. Paul said, "Send me the address." He was already getting his keys from the hook by the door. Paul said, "I am coming now." The woman said thank you in a quiet voice and then the phone call was over. A text came in a few seconds later with a location that was 20 minutes away. This place was on the side of town. The houses there were newer. The lawns were really well taken care of. It was the kind of neighborhood that made Paul feel like his truck did not fit in. Paul thought his old truck looked out of place in this neighborhood with the houses and nice lawns. The lawns were better trimmed. The houses were nicer than what Paul was used to. Paul felt like his old truck belonged else, not in this nice neighborhood with the new houses. He did not care. Paul put his feet into his boots. Then he put on his rain jacket. He ran outside into the storm. The wind hit him hard and it hurt his cheeks. Paul got into his Ford pickup. He turned the key. The truck made a noise, but the engine started up like it always does. His Ford pickup is a truck. It is also very stubborn and it never gives up. The wipers made a squealing noise as they moved across the windshield. Headlights shone through the rain, making it look like they were cutting through tunnels. The radio was not working well. It was just making a lot of static and playing a country song that was really far away, but Paul did not notice. All that Paul could hear was the voice of Pamela. She was saying something that was stuck in his head. He locked the door. What kind of man would do something like that? I mean, a man who does that in the middle of a storm to his wife. That is just awful. What kind of man treats his wife that way, especially when she needs him the most, like during a storm? The man did a thing to his wife. He turned onto her street. The first thing he saw was the porch light. It was really bright against the sky. Then he saw her standing there. The porch light made her stand out. He saw her clearly after that. Pamela was crouched under a ledge. Her arms were wrapped around her like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. There were 2 bags sitting at her feet. Her hair was stuck to her face. It was wet and messy. Her sweater was all wet from the rain. Pamela looked really small, to Paul smaller than he remembered Pamela, and she looked really tired too. It was a tired that made Paul's throat feel funny. He pulled over to the curb, turned on the hazard lights and got out of the car. The rain started pouring down on him away and it soaked through his jacket. He quickly ran up the walkway to get out of the rain. "Pam?" She turned around. Her eyes were really wide. They were also red around the edges. For a moment the woman looked like she thought he was not actually standing there. The woman looked at him like she could not believe that he was really the man she was seeing. "Paul?" She said his name and her voice shook. "You actually came." He said, "Course I did," and then he took off his jacket. He put the jacket over her shoulders before she could say anything. This was something he did without thinking. It was like his body just knew what to do. He had been fixing things for a long time. The truck was waiting for them. "Come on," he said, "get in the truck." She leaned down to pick up her bags with hands that were shaking. Paul took one bag from her without saying anything, then he took the bag too. When her fingers touched his fingers, they felt really cold. This made Paul feel mad at the world because her fingers were so cold. Inside the cab, the heater was blowing warm air. Pamela was looking out the window. Her breath was making the glass all foggy. The rain was coming down hard, hitting the roof of the cab really loudly. Paul was driving away from the house. He kept looking in the mirror at the house until the house was just a blur. Pamela and Paul were leaving the house behind. The rain was still. The heater in the cab was still blowing warm air on Pamela and Paul. He waited for her to say something. He did not push her. He knew what it sounded like when someone was trying not to lose control. He heard it in the way she swallowed her words and the catch of her breath. The woman spoke in a quiet voice and said, "He told me that I made him feel embarrassed." Paul kept his eyes on the road. He asked how. Pamela's hands were clenched tightly in her lap. She said, "We were at that fundraiser, the one for the community shelter." The way she spoke was funny. It was a sad funny. It was like she had learned to laugh when things hurt because if she cried she would get in trouble. "Tyler loves going to those kinds of events," Pamela said. "He loves shaking hands with people and acting like he is a man who really cares about others, when Tyler does not really care at all." Paul's jaw got really tight. The name Tyler just did not sound right to him. The name Tyler was all wrong. Pamela said that she asked him if they could leave early. She told him that she was not feeling well. He said that she should stop being dramatic. Then something else happened. She took a breath and her shoulders went up under Paul's jacket. Then he leaned in close to her. He smiled like he thought he was being really charming. He said that Pamela does not get to make him look weak in front of these people. Pamela remembered that he said this to her. Paul's hands got a tight hold on the steering wheel. His knuckles turned white as he held on that tightly to the steering wheel of the car. The steering wheel was the thing Paul was holding onto tightly. Pamela looked at her hands. She thought about what happened when they got home. He took her keys away from her. Then he took her phone for an hour. When she tried to go inside the house, he did something really mean. He locked the door. Told Pamela that she should think about how she should behave as a wife to him. Pamela remembered that he said she should think about what kind of wife she should be. The storm outside felt really quiet all of a sudden. This was nothing compared to the anger that was building up in Paul's chest. The storm outside was not as loud as the anger that Paul was feeling. He said that the man is not a husband. His voice was very quiet. The man is a bully. He is mean to his wife. Pamela flinched when she heard the word. It was like the word was telling the truth. She started to say something. "He's not always." Then she stopped talking. Her throat moved like she was trying to swallow down the lie that she had been telling herself for a long time. Paul did not force her to finish. He did not want her to defend the man who had her standing outside in the rain like she was something he could just throw away. Paul thought the man was treating her badly and he did not want her to stick up for him. The man had Paul's friend standing outside in the rain. Paul thought that was a terrible thing to do to her. Paul asked softly, "Do you want to go to the police?" Pamela's laugh was not a sound. She said that Tyler has friends at the station. Paul's eyes looked at her for a moment, then he looked back at the road. "Then we will find someone who's not his friend." She turned to face Paul. She looked really surprised. "Paul, it is not that simple," she said to Paul. It was not true. Both of them were aware of it. In towns like this one, certain names mean a lot. Tyler's name means a lot. People smile at Tyler when they see him at fundraisers and they pretend they do not notice how Pamela's voice becomes quieter when Tyler enters a room. Tyler's presence has this effect on people. It is clear that Tyler's name carries weight in this town. People look up to Tyler. They treat him differently because of his name. Paul pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex. It was a plain brick building with a light that kept flickering. This made everything look really tired. His apartment was not big. It was one bedroom. It was a warm place and it was safe. The best part was that it had a lock that actually worked. Paul liked that about his apartment. His apartment was not much. It was warm and safe, and that is what mattered to Paul. He parked the car close to the stairs. Then he hurried around to the other side to open the car door for her. Pamela looked up at the building. She thought the building was going to tell her something. Pamela felt like the building was watching her, waiting to see what she would do. The building seemed big and scary to Pamela. Paul said that everything is okay. He told them that there is still room at his place. Those words really got to her. Her eyes looked really bright. Her lips started to shake a little. Those words had an effect on her face. She said to me, You do not have to, in a quiet voice like being kind suddenly made her feel suspicious of something, and that was really strange because kindness is usually a good thing, and now it seemed like kindness made her suspicious of me, and that made me feel weird because she was talking about kindness in a way that made it sound bad, and that was not what kindness is supposed to be. Paul lifted her bags. He said to Pam, "You called me, that means you trusted me, Paul. I'm not going to let you regret that you trusted Paul." He took her upstairs to his apartment. The apartment smelled a little like the stuff you put in your car in laundry soap. He turned on the lights, got a clean towel. Then he gave the towel to her. He was still standing there with the lights on, and the apartment smelled like motor oil and detergent. "The bathroom is there," he said. "You should take a shower. You will make some tea." Pamela stood still, holding the towel really tight like it was something that she had not gotten in a long time. "Paul." She stopped for a moment. "Why are you doing this to me?" Pamela looked at Paul. Asked again, "Why is Paul doing this?" He did not answer away. The truth was complicated. The truth was that he had never stopped caring about the girl who believed in him when nobody else did. The truth was that he knew what it felt like to be looked down on, to be treated like the girl did not matter and the girl was someone he cared about. The truth was that he had feelings for the girl. He just said, "Because you matter. He told me that I am important." The thing he said was that I matter. He just told me that you matter, and that is what he said. He said it like this: "You matter." Pamela's eyes got all teary. She quickly turned around, headed to the bathroom. It seemed like she did not want him to see Pamela cry. When the door closed, Paul let out a breath that he had been holding without knowing it. His hands were shaking badly. This was not because of the cold. It was because Paul was very angry about something. The door shutting like that had really upset Paul. The man filled a kettle with water, then he set the kettle on the stove. He just stood there staring at the rain that was streaking down his window. Outside, Tyler Walker was probably sitting in a house. He was likely feeling pretty good about himself, thinking that he had taught his wife a lesson. Tyler Walker probably thought that he had made his point and that his wife would think before doing something like that again. The thing is, Tyler Walker was sitting in that house feeling smug and thinking about how he had handled the situation with his wife. Paul's face became very serious and stern, his expression hardened. Tyler had no idea what lesson was coming for him. Pamela came out of the shower wearing one of Paul's old hoodies, sleeves too long, hood drooping over her damp hair. The heat had brought color back to her cheeks, but it couldn't erase what lived behind her eyes. Years of walking on eggshells, years of learning to make herself small so someone else could feel big. Paul set a mug of tea in front of her and slid a plate of toast across the table. He tried to keep things normal. He talked about the garage. About a customer who tried to pay for a brake job with coupons that expired in 2009. Pamela even smiled once, a quick flicker, like a candle struggling against wind. But the moment the apartment went quiet, the heaviness returned. Pamela stared into her mug. "He's going to tell people I'm crazy," she said softly. "He'll say I ran off. He'll say you—" She stopped, the implication hanging there. "He'll say you took me." Paul's jaw tightened. "Let him talk. I'm not scared of rumors." Pamela looked up, eyes shining. "You don't understand. Tyler doesn't just talk. He builds stories. And people believe him because he's charming and he donates money and he shakes hands." Paul leaned forward. "Then we tell the truth louder." Pamela's lips trembled. "Truth doesn't win in this town. Not when the other person has power." Paul held her gaze. "Pam, I've been underestimated my whole life. People think mechanic means nobody. They think an old truck means I'm broke. They think quiet means I don't have a spine." His voice stayed calm, but something fierce lived inside it. "Let them think it. It makes it easier to surprise them." Pamela blinked. "What does that mean?" Paul didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Do you have your own phone?" She shook her head. He took it. He said, "I didn't earn privacy." Paul's eyes darkened, but he kept his voice gentle. "We'll get you a new one tomorrow. For tonight you sleep here. Bedroom's yours. I'll take the couch." Pamela started to protest, but Paul cut it off with a look that said, "Don't argue with kindness." She whispered, "Thank you," like the words were fragile. Paul waited until her bedroom door closed, then he opened his laptop at the kitchen table. The screen's glow painted his face in cold light. He searched Tyler Walker. He didn't expect much. Just the usual: smiling photos at charity events, newspaper blurbs about town council meetings, articles praising his community leadership. And there they were. Tyler Walker, community leader. Tyler Walker, donor. Tyler Walker, future mayor, according to a flattering piece written by someone who probably wanted a favor later. Paul stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then his eyes caught something else, something hidden beneath the praise. A local business complaint. A lawsuit dismissed for lack of evidence. A rumor thread that vanished quickly like someone had cleaned it. Paul's fingers tapped the table. Tyler wasn't just a bully at home. Tyler was a bully everywhere. He just wore a suit when he did it. Paul closed the laptop and stared at the rain-streaked window again. He thought about Pamela standing outside in the storm with 2 duffel bags like her life could be reduced to what she could carry. He made a quiet promise to himself. No more. The next morning, the storm had softened into a gray drizzle. Paul took Pamela to a small diner off the highway, one of the few places where nobody looked twice at his oil-stained jeans. They'd barely sat down when the door chimed and a woman behind the counter froze mid-pour. Her eyes narrowed at Pamela. Then she looked at Paul like he'd dragged trouble into the room. "Well," the woman said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "if it isn't Tyler's wife." Pamela's shoulders tightened. Paul felt it like her body was bracing for impact. The woman leaned on the counter, lips curled. "You know Tyler's been looking for you. He says you ran off with some guy." Pamela's face drained. Paul slowly set down his menu. The woman's gaze flicked over Paul's worn boots, his calloused hands, the old baseball cap he'd grabbed on the way out. Her smile sharpened. "Guess he wasn't lying." Paul's voice stayed even. "Ma'am, we're here to eat. That's all." The woman snorted. "Sure. People like you always have stories. People like you." Pamela's eyes dropped to the table. Paul's chest tightened with anger, not just at the woman but at the whole culture that made cruelty feel normal. Paul stood up calmly and walked to the counter. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Do you own this place?" he asked. The woman blinked, thrown off. "My brother does." Paul nodded. "Then tell your brother a review is coming. Not about the food. About the way his staff treats customers." The woman's face reddened. "Excuse me?" Paul leaned in slightly, still calm. "You don't know Pamela. You don't know what she's survived. But you're comfortable humiliating her in public because her husband has a name you respect. That says more about you than it does about her." The diner got quiet. Forks paused midair. A couple at the booth nearby looked uncomfortable, like they just realized they were witnessing a kind of violence that didn't leave bruises but still left damage. Pamela's eyes widened, like she couldn't believe someone was defending her out loud. The woman scoffed. "Tyler's a good man." Paul's gaze didn't flinch. Good men don't lock their wives out in storms. The woman's mouth opened but no sound came out. Paul turned back to the table. "Come on, Pam." They left without eating. Outside, Pamela's hands shook. "You shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "If word gets back to him." "Let it," Paul said. Pamela stared at him. "Why aren't you scared?" Paul opened his truck door for her, then met her eyes. "Because fear is how Tyler controls people. And I'm done letting him control anyone." They drove to a phone store and bought Pamela a simple phone under Paul's name. She texted one person, an old friend from high school who'd moved away and become a social worker. The message was short. "I need help. It's Tyler." The reply came fast. "I believe you. Tell me where you are." Pamela's eyes filled again, but this time it wasn't only fear. It was relief, pure and shocking. Back at Paul's apartment, there was a knock at the door. Paul opened it to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. Pamela appeared behind Paul, face draining. One officer cleared his throat. "Paul Everett?" "That's me," Paul said. "We got a call," the officer said carefully, eyes flicking past Paul's shoulder toward Pamela. "Report says you're harboring a woman who left her husband. Her husband is concerned for her safety." Pamela's voice came out tiny. "He's not concerned. He's angry." The officer's expression tightened, like he'd heard that sentence before and didn't know what to do with it. Paul stepped forward slightly, calm but firm. "She's safe here. She came voluntarily. If Tyler wants to talk to her, he can do it through a lawyer." The officer frowned. "Tyler Walker is a respected." Paul cut him off. "Not with volume. With certainty. Respected doesn't mean right." The officers exchanged a look. The second one shifted uncomfortably. "We just need to make sure she's okay." Pamela swallowed, then stepped forward out of Paul's shadow. Her hands shook, but her voice grew stronger with each word. "I'm okay. I'm safer here than I am with him." The first officer hesitated. "Mrs. Walker, are you saying your husband harmed you?" Pamela's throat worked. She glanced at Paul and something passed between them. Fear, courage, a quiet agreement. She nodded once. "Yes." The hallway seemed to hold its breath. Paul watched the officers carefully. He knew this town. He knew how systems protected men like Tyler. But he also knew something Tyler didn't. Some systems were about to change. After the officers left, Pamela sat on the edge of the couch like she couldn't trust the room to stay safe. Paul handed her a glass of water, then sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "You did the hardest part," he said quietly. "You said it out loud." Pamela stared at the water like it might spill secrets. "Saying it doesn't fix anything," she whispered. "Now he'll punish me." Paul's eyes hardened. "Not if we move smart." Pamela looked up. "How?" Paul took a breath. "First, you're not alone. Second, Tyler isn't as untouchable as he wants people to think." Pamela let out a bitter laugh. "He owns half the town." Paul's mouth twitched. "No. He just rents it. With charm and donations and favors." Pamela studied him. "You sound like you've thought about this." Paul didn't answer right away. He got up, walked to a small cabinet near his bookshelf and pulled out a folder, thick, worn, stuffed with papers. He came back and set it on the table. Pamela stared. "What is that?" Paul opened it. Inside were documents, deeds, company paperwork, legal letters, a faded photo of a younger Paul standing beside an older man in front of a large auto dealership. The older man had Paul's eyes. Pamela's brow furrowed. "Paul, what is this?" Paul exhaled. "My father." Pamela blinked. "I thought your dad left." "He did," Paul said. "Or that's what everyone thought. Truth is, he didn't leave because he didn't care. He left because he was sick and he didn't want me watching him disappear." Pamela's lips parted. "Paul?" Paul tapped the dealership photo. He owned Everett Auto Group. Multiple dealerships. Repair chains. The kind of business Tyler wishes he had. Pamela stared like her brain couldn't process it. "But you work at a garage." Paul nodded. "Because I wanted a life that felt real. I didn't want people pretending to like me because of a last name." He swallowed. "When he died, everything went to me. But I kept it quiet. I put managers in place. I stayed invisible." Pamela's hands rose to her mouth. "Paul, why didn't you tell anyone?" Paul's eyes softened. "Because I didn't want to become the kind of person people perform for. And because the moment people know you have money, they stop seeing you." Pamela's eyes filled. "So all this time." "All this time," Paul said, "I've been letting the town underestimate me on purpose." Pamela stared at him and something in her expression shifted, like hope was fighting its way back into her bones. Paul leaned forward. "Tyler's power is social. He controls stories. But I have resources. And more importantly, we have truth." Pamela's voice trembled. "Truth didn't stop him before." Paul's tone stayed steady. "Because you were isolated. That's what abusers do. They shrink your world until they're the only voice you hear." Pamela flinched, then nodded slowly. "He always said nobody would believe me." Paul's eyes sharpened. "Then we prove him wrong." That afternoon, Pamela's social worker friend drove into town. Her name was Denise and she didn't look like someone who would be intimidated by Tyler Walker. She walked into Paul's apartment with a binder, a calm voice, and the kind of confidence that came from helping people survive storms. Denise listened as Pamela spoke. Not once did she interrupt. Not once did she doubt. When Pamela finished, Denise nodded. "Okay," she said simply. "We document everything. We file for a protective order. We get you connected to a legal advocate. And we make sure Tyler can't twist the narrative." Pamela's hands shook. "He's going to say I'm lying." Denise's expression didn't change. "Then we bring receipts." Over the next 2 days, Pamela remembered things she tried to forget. Denise helped her write them down. Dates, quotes, patterns. Moments when Tyler's cruelty hid behind jokes, behind concern, behind fake apologies. Paul quietly made calls. Not to threaten. Not to bully. To protect. He contacted a respected attorney in Lincoln, someone outside Tyler's influence. He arranged a safe place for Pamela to stay that wasn't tied to his apartment, in case Tyler tried to corner them. He also did one more thing, something Pamela didn't know about yet. He reached out to the board of a local charity Tyler loved to parade around, the community shelter fundraiser. He requested a private meeting. When the day came, Paul showed up to the shelter's conference room in clean jeans and a plain jacket. Tyler Walker was already there, sitting like he owned the table. 2 board members sat nearby, nervous. Tyler smiled when he saw Paul. It was the kind of smile that judged your worth in half a second. "Well," Tyler said, leaning back. "If it isn't the town mechanic." Paul sat down calmly. "Mr. Walker." Tyler's eyes flicked with irritation at the formal tone. Let's not play games. I want my wife back. One board member cleared her throat. Tyler, Pamela has contacted us. She says she's not safe. Tyler laughed, soft and dismissive. Pamela is emotional. She gets dramatic. She watches too many of those shows that put ideas in her head. Paul didn't flinch. Ideas like, I deserve not to be locked out in a storm? Tyler's smile tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Paul slid a folder across the table. Tyler glanced down, then up. What is this? Financial records, Paul said. Donations, campaign money, and some interesting transfers I found connected to the shelter. The board members leaned forward, startled. Tyler's face stayed smooth but his eyes sharpened. Where did you get that? Paul met his gaze calmly. I have access to resources you didn't consider. Tyler scoffed. You're a mechanic. Paul's expression didn't change. And you're a man who thinks titles make him untouchable. The board chair's voice shook. Tyler, these numbers don't match what we reported. Tyler's jaw flexed. This is ridiculous. Paul's voice stayed even. What's ridiculous is using charity as a stage while you treat your wife like property. Tyler's eyes flashed. Watch your mouth. Paul leaned in slightly, calm as steel. No, you watch yours. Because the next meeting isn't with a charity board. It's with a judge. Tyler's smile returned, but it was colder now. You think you can beat me? In this town? Paul finally let a small truth slip through. This town isn't as small as you think. Tyler stared, sensing something he couldn't name. And for the first time, Paul saw it. Tyler Walker's confidence wobble. Because bullies are brave only when they believe nobody will stand up. Pamela had stood up. And now Paul was standing with her.